Imagine waking up on a quiet lake, the sun barely kissing the water, only to watch a fisherman being torn apart by an invisible force. You stare in disbelief as a monstrous entity uses his own fishing line to slice him in half, the blade of monofilament cutting through flesh and bone like butter. Then it turns to his friend, trapping him before burning him alive over his own campfire, his screams echoing across the water. But this is just the opening act. This is a world of evil dead burn, a relentless nightmare that picks up right where the last film left off, plunging us back into a universe where the dead don't stay dead and the demons of the Necronomicon Ex Mortis are always hungry for fresh souls. And it all starts with a single, terrifying question. What happens when the vows you took in life live on even in death? This is the story of Alice, a young woman whose life has already been shattered into a million pieces. She is trapped in a cycle of grief and simmering anger following the sudden, violent death of her husband, Will. But the nightmare is only beginning. What she doesn't know, what she couldn't possibly imagine, is that Will's death was no accident. It was a first strike in a terrifying new chapter of the Evil Dead saga, a prelude to a symphony of horror that will test the very limits of her sanity and her will to survive. The movie opens on a serene, almost postcard-perfect lake. The water is glassy, reflecting the deep blue of the sky above. Two fishermen are enjoying a quiet day, their lines cast, their conversation easy and relaxed. They are completely unaware that they are not alone. Beneath the tranquil surface, something ancient and malevolent stays. The water begins to ripple, not from wind or fish, but from a force that seems to pulse with a dark, unnatural energy. Suddenly, the Deadite, the same terrifying entity that escaped the high-rise apartment building in Evil Dead Rise, erupts from the depths. It is a swirling mass of shadow and hatred, a demonic force that has found its way to this peaceful lake. The attack is swift and merciless. The Deadite moves with a speed that defies logic, wrapping a fishing line around one of the men with surgical precision. Before he can even scream, the line pulls taut, slicing through him in a grotesque spray of crimson. His body separates, and he collapses into the water, which quickly turns a sickening shade of red. His partner, frozen in absolute terror, tries to run, but the Deadite is faster. It traps him, holding him in place as it drags him back to the campfire. The demonic force feeds on his fear, savoring it like a fine wine, before tossing him onto the blazing flames. His agonized howl fills the air as he burns alive, his flesh sizzling and popping in the fire. The Deadite, its hunger momentarily sated, then drags a burning man's corpse from the fire. It pulls the flaming, charred body to a nearby road that winds through the dense forest. The entity positions the corpse perfectly, waiting for the right moment. A car speeds around a sharp corner, its headlights cutting through the early morning gloom. The driver, Will, is a man with a troubled past, but tonight he's just trying to get home. He slams on the brakes, but it's too late. The car smashes into the flaming body, sending the vehicle careening off the road and rolling violently down an embankment. Will is thrown from the wreckage, his body broken and bloody, but still alive. He stumbles to his feet, dazed and confused, unable to comprehend what just happened. But the Deadite is waiting for him. It swoops down, a black cloud of malevolent energy, and forces its way into Will's broken body. Will's eyes snap open, glowing with a sickly yellow light. He has become the Deadite's latest vessel, and a new, more intimate horror is born. Will's death is a tragedy, a loss that devastates his wife. But for Alice, it is merely the beginning of a much darker journey. Soon after, Alice travels to the secluded, decaying family home of her in-laws to attend Will's funeral. The house is a relic of a bygone era, a sprawling Victorian structure with peeling paint, creaking floorboards, and a suffocating atmosphere that seems to swallow all hope. The dark wood paneling and heavy velvet curtains give it the feel of a mausoleum, a fitting place for the Price family to gather and confront their grief. But this family is anything but united. Right from the start, the atmosphere is toxic and volatile, charged with decades of unresolved resentment. Edgar, Will's father, is a stern, angry patriarch whose face is perpetually set in a scowl of disapproval. He is a man who has always ruled his household with an iron fist, and he blames Alice for his son's death, believing that if she had been a better wife, Will would still be alive. Susan, his mother, is a woman who has sacrificed everything for the family myth, a fragile creature who has spent her life enabling her husband's cruelty and her son's abusive behavior. She shares Edgar's bitterness, casting accusatory glances at Alice at every opportunity. Joseph, Will's brother, is a struggling writer, a sensitive soul who has always lived in his brother's shadow. He harbors a quiet, unspoken affection for Alice, a feeling he has never dared to act on. His girlfriend, Thea, is caught in the middle, trying desperately to keep the peace and maintain some semblance of normalcy in this house of horrors. Then there's Polly, the family grandmother, a deeply racist woman suffering from advanced dementia. She is increasingly disconnected from reality, muttering forgotten slurs and reliving memories that may or may not be real. The family tension is suffocating, a ticking time bomb waiting for a single spark to ignite the powder keg at the funeral. Joseph stands apart from the others, his mind consumed by a different kind of obsession. He has been spending his time in the dusty, forgotten attic of the house, where he has discovered a hidden collection of his grandfather Benjamin's occult research. Benjamin Price was a man who dabbled in forces he didn't fully understand, and his legacy is a trove of forbidden knowledge. Joseph finds pages torn from the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead, the same cursed text that has spawned countless horrors across the ages. He also discovers disturbing field recordings and diaries detailing Benjamin's desperate attempts to understand and control the demonic entities. Joseph is a writer in desperate need of a story, and in his grandfather's work, he believes he has finally found it. The temptation is too great to resist. He begins to read the cursed passages aloud, his voice echoing in the dusty attic, unaware that he is speaking the words aloud. He is unknowingly breaking the powerful protective wards his grandfather placed around the house, the ancient sigils and rituals that have kept the evil at bay for decades. He has just opened the door that should have remained forever shut, inviting the darkness back into the world. At the same time, among the piles of yellow papers and strange artifacts, Joseph also finds a small, unassuming weapon, the Kandarian dagger. It's a crude, shiv-like blade, forged from bone and obsidian, designed specifically to banish the demons of the Necronomicon. The dagger hums with a faint, almost imperceptible energy, a vibration that seems to resonate with the very fabric of evil. But the Deadites will stop at nothing to get it back. The dagger is the only thing that can truly hurt them, and its presence in the house acts as a powerful beacon, drawing the evil directly to them like a moth to a flame. The next morning, the family gathers for the funeral service, held in the grand, gloomy parlor of the house. The air is thick with the scent of lilies and old wood and the sound of stifled sobs. They lower the coffin into the ground outside, the priest intoning the words of the funeral rite. But as the dirt begins to fall, the demonic force, now fully in control of Will's body, makes its presence felt with terrifying clarity. The possessed corpse begins to spasm violently from inside the coffin, its fists pounding against the wood, its voice screaming in a guttural, inhuman tongue. It's a horrifying sound that rips through the solemn ceremony, shattering the fragile peace. The family is thrown into a frenzy, their grief turning to sheer, unadulterated terror as they watch their son and brother seemingly return from the dead. But this is no resurrection. This is an invasion, a violation of the natural order. Will's demonic form claws its way out of the grave, attacking the mourners with a savage, unholy fury. He lunges at his own father, slamming the old man against a granite gravestone with bone-shattering force. It's a violent act that marks the beginning of the Deadite possession spreading through the Price bloodline, turning family against family. The chaos subsides as quickly as it began, but the evil is merely taking root, planting its seeds in the fertile soil of the family's pain. The demon retreats, but it leaves behind a palpable sense of dread. The family retreats to the house, shaken and terrified, their minds struggling to process the impossible horror they have just witnessed. They try to rationalize what they saw, whispering theories about mass hysteria and grief-induced hallucinations, but deep down, they know the truth. Something is terribly, horribly wrong. Later that night, the family attempt to have a tense dinner, sitting around a massive, ornate dining table. But the atmosphere is unbearable, thick with suspicion and fear. The supernatural presence grows stronger as the meal progresses. Glasses shatter for no reason, the lights flicker ominously, and shadows seem to move in the corners of the room. Their dog, a loyal and beloved family pet, suddenly becomes violently ill, its body racked with convulsions. It collapses to the floor, dead, a grim portent of the violence to come. The family's buried resentments begin to surface, each cruel word and hurtful accusation feeding the demonic energy in the room. The Deadites aren't just attacking their bodies, they are weaponizing the family's own hatred, using their pain and anger as fuel for their malevolent power. without realizing it. They are walking into a trap, a carefully orchestrated game of cat and mouse. The Deadites use a family's own home as their hunting ground, turning familiar rooms into death traps. When Thea, overwhelmed by the escalating tension, retreats to her car in the driveway to escape, she finds no sanctuary. A possessed Edgar is waiting for her. In a shocking and brutally efficient scene, the demonic patriarch uses a car seat headdress as a weapon, impaling Thea through the throat. She dies in a spray of blood, her body slumping against the steering wheel. But death is not the end. The spirit of the Deadite enters her body, and she is resurrected as another vessel for the demonic horde. Her eyes snap open, glowing with that familiar, sickly yellow light, and she returns to the house, a new monster born from the ashes of an innocent woman that a few hours later, the house has descended into absolute, unadulterated chaos. The remaining survivors are scattered and terrified, unable to trust anyone. Joseph is forced to confront his possessed girlfriend, Thea. He tries to reason with her, to reach the woman he loved, but she is no longer there. The Deadites torment him, forcing him to watch as Thea's body is used to taunt and attack him. They whisper vile truths in his ear, revealing his deepest insecurities and darkest secrets. The violence escalates throughout the house. Edgar, now a full-fledged Deadite, attacks his own family with a terrifying ferocity, his years of pent-up anger and resentment amplified to murderous levels. He chases them through the halls, his laughter echoing off the walls. Meanwhile, the elderly Polly, whose dementia is now twisted and corrupted by the demonic influence, becomes a figure of grotesque horror. A Deadite, in a moment of perverse mockery, licks her dentures, and the evil spreads through her like a virus. It transforms a frail, elderly body into a fast, vicious monster, a creature of unnatural speed and strength. The family's patriarch and matriarch are now agents of hell, hunting their own children with a sadistic glee. In a particularly gruesome moment, Susan, Will's mother, is possessed, and she begins to defend the family's legacy and the twisted memory of her abusive son with fanatical, demonic favor. The lines between the living and the dead, the past and the present, begin to blur as the Deadites tear the family apart from the inside out, exposing every wound and weakness. But things were about to get much worse. As the night wears on and the body count rises, Alice discovers the secret of the Kandarian dagger. She realizes it's the only weapon that can stop the Deadites, but it's not as simple as just stabbing them. When she uses a dagger on a possessed person, the demon is expelled, forced out of its human host. But the human body is always left broken and dying, succumbing to the horrific wounds inflicted by the possession. It's a weapon of mercy and damnation, a final act of violence that offers no real hope for the victims. It is a brutal, heartbreaking choice, and one that Alice is forced to make again and again. During the chaos, Joseph finally finds the courage to fight back. He manages to destroy his possessed girlfriend, Thea, but the act is too much for him. The emotional weight of killing the woman he loves, even in her demonic form, breaks something inside him. In a moment of profound despair and weakness, he is taken by the Deadites, his soul consumed by the darkness, and he becomes one of them. One by one, everyone in the house falls to the demonic curse, their minds and bodies corrupted, leaving Alice as the only one left standing to fight for her life. The final confrontation takes place in the burning house, a structure now consumed by flames. Alice, wielding the Kandarian dagger, must fight her way through possessed bodies of her in-laws. She dispatches the Deadite versions of her family with brutal efficiency, her movements driven by pure survival instinct. But she is no longer fighting just demons. She's fighting the ghosts of her past, the memory of her abusive husband, and the family that enabled his cruelty for so many years. The father, Edgar, and the mother, Susan, are both horrifically killed as Alice is forced to sever the demonic ties by destroying their hosts. She watches each of them crumble, feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Finally, only one remains. Will, the Deadite Will, a sentient, charred corpse perpetually on fire, has been waiting for this moment. He is the manifestation of all of Alice's trauma, the living embodiment of her worst nightmare. The house is now a raging inferno, a burning, collapsing tomb mirroring the fiery car crash that first took his life. As they face each other in the heart of the blaze, Will taunts her, his voice a horrifying blend of his own and the demon's. He declares he will never let her live without him, that they are bound together for eternity. It's a chilling echo of the abuse he inflicted on her when he was alive. Alice, with a Kandarian dagger held tightly in her hand, finally confronts the monster that was her husband. She plunges the blade deep into his burning body. The demon screeches, a sound of pure rage and agony, and is expelled from Will's form. For a single, fleeting moment, Will is human again. He looks at Alice with his own eyes, a flicker of recognition and pain in them. But it's too late. The damage is done. He is dying, his body broken beyond repair. Alice, her eyes filled with a complex mix of pity, grief, and fury, crushes his skull with a heavy piece of debris, finally ending the nightmare that has been haunting her since the moment she met him. The house collapses around her in a cascade of fire and timber. Alice, covered in blood, soot, and tears, crawls out of the wreckage just as the first light of dawn breaks over the horizon. She is the sole survivor, the only one who made it out alive. When the police and paramedics arrive, she lies on the stretcher, her eyes staring blankly at the pale, cold sky. But there is something different in her gaze. As she blinks slowly, her eyes flash a faint, subtle, demonic red. Is she finally free, or has the evil taken root deep inside her soul? The nightmare is over, or is it just beginning? If you enjoy this movie explanation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment which movie you'd like me to explain next. Thanks for watching.